Welcome to Oh Yum, and I have a cook-along you absolutely have to make. This is my poblano and corn pudding. Yes, it's a savory bake that you serve as a side dish. I'll show you how to first create a nice vegetable base for this savory pudding, work in tons of fresh corn, and bake it so that when you top it with a little cheese, green onion, and coriander, you've got something that's perfect to serve with something hot off the grill. You have to make my poblano and corn pudding. To start things off, I'm going to saute my onions and poblano pepper. So I'll heat a little oil over medium. I like to use olive oil, but you could use vegetable. Doesn't really matter. And I've got a medium onion. And I took one whole poblano pepper, seeded it, and diced it up. I like using poblano pepper because it can have a little bit of warmth, but it'll never be too hot. But what it has is intense flavor, which I love in partnership with that sweet corn. Oh, that makes this pudding just such a great side dish. I wait until the onions are translucent because then I know they're soft enough that they won't have crunch in the cooked corn pudding, but they'll also be able to have flavor to let off into the pudding as it bakes. Now that the onions have almost softened, I can add a little garlic, giving it a minute more to cook. I should let you know about the inspiration for this corn pudding. A few years ago, we visited Mexico City, and at a fine dining restaurant was presented a corn pudding as an appetizer. And it was not like a cornbread. It was fluffy and eggy and custard-like, but savory and served with the sauce. I loved it as an appetizer, but I thought that same idea as a side dish next to something like barbecue would just be perfect. So that was the inspiration for this recipe. So I've got 3 cups of corn kernels. If corn is not in season, fresh corn that is sweet and tender, then you can certainly use frozen corn. I'm lucky, it's corn season now. So I'll add this to my blender. You could use a food processor, or if you'd rather use an immersion blender for this task, whatever is simplest for you. That's a lot of corn. But as it cooks, it's going to let off its juices, and that beautiful sweetness and its built-in starch helps to set the pudding. I'll also add a little bit of milk, a bit of sugar, not for sweetness so much. Well, okay, no, never mind. It is for a little sweetness. And now I want to separate my eggs. So I'm going to keep my whites to whip separately. And this really gives the pudding a beautiful fluffiness. Souffle is not the right word. It's got too much stuff in it to be like a souffle, but it definitely has a lightness to it. So this is a worthwhile step as opposed to just adding the whole eggs to the corn. So the yolks go in. Give this a little whir. Okay, and then just to make it easier to stir, I'll pour this into a mixing bowl. And the next thing I want to do is sift in my little bit of dry ingredients. It's only 1/3 cup of flour, 50 grams, but you do want to sift it just so you don't get any lumps. In goes a little baking powder, and you need to add a touch of salt. I don't think my salt has any lumps, but I'll sift it in nonetheless. And I need my whisk. Here we go. Now I can add my softened onions and peppers. And because of that volume of fresh corn in there, it gives this corn pudding structure so that your vegetables don't sink right to the bottom. If you just made a custard out of milk and cream and put in corn kernels in the vegetables, everything would sink to the bottom. But as you can see, it stays in place. And the last addition, a bit of, now I'm using Monterrey Jack cheese, and it's got a bit of jalapeno pepper in it. If you can get your hands on Oaxaca cheese, oh my gosh, that's the best cheese to use in this recipe because it just melts and stretches beautifully and has fantastic flavor. But in a pinch, the stretching of Monterrey Jack will work just well. You have to work with what you have on hand. And you know, I like to give you lots of options, and when you have questions related to substitutions, I try and help out wherever I can. And I appreciate those questions. Okay, so we're almost done, except for whipping those egg whites. So I'm straight whipping them, no added sugar, which means they'll whip up very quickly. And I want to whip them to a medium peak, so not a full stiff peak. That way, when the pudding bakes, it won't inflate and then deflate too quickly. Oh, still a little soft. I can go for another 30 seconds. Okay, and because my base is already pretty light, I don't have to, unlike a cake batter, I don't need to fold this in multiple additions. You can just add it all at once. But I like to use my whisk to fold in the egg whites. So whether you use your whip attachment or your whisk, either way, it just helps pull the whites through this loose batter without breaking them down too much. There we go. Now I can finish off with my spatula just to get around the edges and pull from the bottom. There we go. So you can see by this volume, this makes enough to feed. I find it feeds around 8, even up to 10 people. It's also delicious reheated the next day. So even if there are only 4 of you for dinner, you've got some pretty nifty leftovers. Any sort of oven to table baking dish will work. I've got a stovetop skillet or brazier here, but you could use a 9x13 baking pan, anything you choose, so long as it can go onto the table. I've lightly greased the pan and I pour in that corn pudding batter. And this is now ready for the oven, which I've preheated at 350, and it depends on the size of your pan. If it's smaller and taller, it's going to take longer because you've got more volume and height in your pudding. If you've got a wider flat dish, it could take anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes. And so I'll pop this in the oven and we'll let it bake away. And you do want to serve it warm. So you can time your elements, do your corn pudding base, but whip the egg whites and fold them in last minute before you pop it in the oven. Oh, I have to say, it smells fantastic in here. You can smell the onion, the poblano pepper flavor is coming through. Corn has its own aroma. You just know it's corn and you know, oh, and I guess my oven knows that it's time to show you the poblano corn pudding. So let's take a look. Oh, beautiful. So it really does souffle up a little bit. You can see it's got a nice wiggle, but it's fully set. You've got a bit of time. You don't have to rush to the table with this. It's smoking hot. It's not a souffle. So I'd say this holds warm for a good 20 to 30 minutes if you're getting your dinner coordinated. And to reheat it, even though it does sink down a little bit, just reheat it at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes to warm through. So the finishing touch, I talked about Oaxaca cheese, which is a beautiful melting cheese. If you have access to cotija cheese to garnish on top, well, that's delicious, salty and nice. I have feta, and it accomplishes the same thing, and I want to put it on while it's warm so it has a chance to soften up. A little bit of green onion. And I've got some chopped fresh coriander. A cilantro, if you want to call it that. However you wish, it is delicious. Oh, and it does smell so good. And so even though you've got time, I just want to show you how fluffy and light that corn pudding is. So it's a bit custardy, but also, oh, you can't even call it a cornbread. Nothing like a cornbread. It is its own thing. So imagine that with some barbecue ribs, grilled chicken. This is truly a special side dish. And it is so special that I had earmarked this for my newest cookbook, Anna Cooks. But we ran out of pages, so I had to cut a few recipes. And unfortunately, this was a recipe that got cut, but I'm able to share it with you. If you want to pre-order a copy of Anna Cooks before it comes out on September 30th, now, if you're watching this video after September 30th, you've missed your chance. But we are offering, for those who purchase a pre-order, an opportunity to claim a bonus recipe collection of 6 extra recipes, because there were more that we had to cut. And so anyone who pre-orders a copy can have access to those recipes so you can get in the kitchen and cook recipes similar to this. Full menu. I've got just everything from breakfast right through to snacks at the end of the day. The link to get information and details for the claiming your bonus recipes is right below. But in the meantime, you'll also find this full recipe in print right below on your screen. It's been so wonderful to share this recipe with you. I love a good savory bake. Is this Anna Cooks or is this Anna Bakes? It's kind of a bit of both. Anyway, it is delicious. Join me again. I'm just waiting for this to cool so I don't burn the inside of my mouth. And I'll be back with another savory or sweet recipe. You never know what's coming. It's hot. I didn't mean to smack my lips there. The sweetness of the fresh in-season corn is spectacular. And amazing how just one poblano pepper brings so much flavor to this whole pudding. It's a great dish. I know you'll love it. Thanks for watching, everyone.